Am I allowed to mention you by name?
Sorry?
Am I mentioning them by name?
Yep, you're to mention them by name, but just not what
No.
you do now.
And if you just recite the two.
That's it.
So,
Yeah. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn.
go on. Just keep going.
At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
Yep. So that came through right through that volume?
On our link, we can drop it down.
Yeah. Yeah, cool.
Cool. All right. So I'm not wearing my hat for the first part.
Okay.
I think I'm still talking.
You don't have anything, sorry, there's a bit of like a blue circle.
Oh, perfect.
A blue circle.
That is from that.
Yep.
Well,
Yep, right there.
perfect. Thanks for the heads up. If I put that there, is that gonna...
So probably safer if... You know what?
We have shared the incommunicable experience of war. You have felt the passion, and you have lived life to its top. In your youth, you were touched with fire. Oliver Wendell Holmes, Civil War veteran. The incommunicable experience of war. Today, I want to recognise MTF-1's contribution 10 years ago in the dust of Uruzgan, to welcome you all home and to thank you for your service. That can sometimes sound a very trite thing to say, thank you for your service. But when it's said here at the Australian War Memorial, in the company of 102,800 names, in the company of 2 million women and men who have worn this nation's uniform, that is your company, it is good company, and you have earned the honour to stand amongst them. What I also wanted to do today was provide some meaning. Downstairs in the Afghanistan gallery, we have the Afghanistan story. And towards the end, one of the most common reflections of those who gave their oral histories was it worth it? Did we leave Afghanistan better than when we found it? Well, Lawrence of Arabia once said that it's better to let them do imperfectly that which we would do perfectly. For it is their country, it is their war, and our time is short. You went to Afghanistan for counterinsurgency operations to ensure that Afghanistan never again became a safe haven for terrorists. Well, I had the honour and the perspective of following you a few years later in 2015 and 16, and that's the perspective that I bring to your service. You forged a fierce reputation with our coalition partners for your warfighting capabilities. You also forged an enviable reputation with the Governor of Uruzgan, the Governor of Helmand, the Governor of Kandahar, and with the President of Afghanistan as compassionate allies. The US Commanding General of NATO forces told me that his campaign strategy was to fight, to fracture, and to talk. Afghanistan was always going to have to end in a political settlement. When the Taliban realised that they could not defeat you on the battlefield and that we were not going to leave precipitously. 19 years later, we're still there. You were part of that continuum, to fight, to fracture, and to talk. And that's mission success. But if you need another metric, the Governor of Uruzgan also told me once that the alternative to the Taliban and poppies is jobs. Well, I'll add to that education. In 2001, there were about 1 million kids in Afghanistan going to school. 43% of an eligible male group were at school. 3% of girls were at school. When I left in 2016, there were 9 million kids at school. 3 million of those were girls. So the other alternative to the Taliban and poppies is education. And you gave the Afghans time to govern, and you gave the international community the freedom of movement that it needed to deliver aid. But in my eyes, what does success in Afghanistan look like? It's you. To quote Chaplain Sutherland, victory or success in Afghanistan is not going to be measured in the way it might have been in the past. I think some of our best successes are going to be in the people that we bring home, and hopefully the pride that you have in the job that you have done. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial. I'm thinking of you on your 10th anniversary, and it's now my great honour to welcome Colonel Grote to the lectern.
Thanks, Director. Firstly, I'd like to thank Matt for his kind words as the Director of the Australian War Memorial, his staff and the kind invitation to reflect on 10 years that have passed since the men and women of MTF-1 came back from southern Afghanistan in 2010. It is fitting in this COVID-constrained environment that we can be joined by some of the team here today, and I thank you for coming. Familiar faces that'll make this short ceremony all the more special. Let's hope we can all get to Brisbane in a few weeks. I trust this address, which is delivered on behalf of both commanding officers of MTF-1, Brigadier Jason Blaine and Colonel Mark Jennings, who can't be here today, is a fitting tribute to the contribution, the 10th anniversary of MTF-1's return from active service. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Ngunnawal people who are the traditional custodians of the land on which this ceremony is being conducted, and pay respects to their elders, both past and present. I extend this respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, in particular those that have served and continue to serve their country today. While the boot prints are made in the dust of Uruzgan province by the last members of MTF-1 before boarding the RAF flight in October 2010 commenced their journey home, were soon covered by the footsteps of others. A permanent legacy of service and sacrifice by the men and women of MTF-1 remain, and certainly remain today. Over 800 Australians from MTF-1 during the period January to October 2010 served, performing their duties in headquarters, forward operating bases, remote combat outposts, mentoring and partnering the Afghan army counterparts, patrolling and fighting in villages and green zones, conducting resupply convoys through the deserts and towns, working alongside our DFAT and AusAid partners to deliver infrastructure projects and training, caring for the wounded and injured, and protecting and supporting the thousands of Australian and coalition personnel in Uruzgan province. Every job critical, every person exposed to danger. In carrying out its mission, 33 members of MTF-1 would be wounded in action, and 6 men would not return to their families and loved ones, killed in the service of their nation. Sapper Jacob Moreland, Sapper Darren Smith, Private Nathan Buse, Private Grant Kirby, Private Thomas Dale, and Lance Corporal Jared McKinney. Sons, brothers, partners, fathers and mates. Men whose names are forever recorded on the bronze panel of the Roll of Honour behind us. Men who left an indelible mark on all of us, who we had the privilege to serve alongside. And men who through their sacrifice gave some hope to a nation and its people torn by war and violence. This year, together with their families and loved ones, we conducted commemoration services in Brisbane on the occasion of the 10th anniversary of their deaths. Each ceremony deeply moving, personal, and offering some comfort to all involved. Today, we again especially pay our respects to these men. May they continue to rest in peace, their duty done. As we know from many men and women of MTF-1, the battles did not stop when they departed the villages and the fields and the FOBs in the deserts of Afghanistan. For far too many, they've continued to mentally confront the terror and the horror experienced during their deployment. And sadly, for some of our mates, the pain has been too much for them to bear. Every day, we think about all those who have suffered and are suffering as a result of their service, including Sapper David Wood from 2CER, who died in 2013 as a result of his service, and the veterans who have taken their lives since returning from Afghanistan. We must continue to support those who are now fighting their battles at home. While today is about acknowledging the 10th anniversary of MTF-1, it is important to recognise the service and sacrifices of our task force that is reflected in the thousands of men and women who served in Uruzgan province as part of other task forces that preceded and followed our deployment. One distinguishing feature of MTF-1 is that it was the only task force of this nature to be awarded the Meritorious Unit Citation. The citation paints a picture for all members of the task force and what they experienced and achieved over an intensive 8-month deployment. It reads as follows. The first mentoring task force contributed markedly to improve security and development through its partnering with the 4th Brigade Afghan National Army. During the 8-month deployment, the task force conducted over 1,700 patrols, involving more than 560 small arms fire incidents, and located over 100 improvised explosive devices and more than 250 weapons and explosive ammunition caches. The task force suffered more than 50 improvised explosive device strikes and nearly 40 battle casualties, 6 of whom were killed in action. The task force displayed remarkable endurance and courage to build positive relationships with the local people, tribal leaders and officials of the Afghanistan government. The words remarkable endurance and courage especially stand out and resonate strongly. And these traits did not stop when MTF-1 disbanded. They are here today and are present in the many individuals touched by our experience in Afghanistan. We especially see them in the families, loved ones and our mates that have fallen. We see them in the actions of those who continue to serve our nation in uniform and those who had left the service to take on new challenges and new opportunities. In the decade since MTF-1 completed its tour of duty, Afghanistan has continued to experience suffering, pain and loss on a terrible scale. But I, for one, do not abide by the view that the situation today means the service and sacrifice of Australians who served in Afghanistan was in vain. The mentoring task force, working alongside many others, helped remove the scourge of IEDs from killing innocent civilians, trained the Afghan National Army to deliver protection to local communities, enabled healthcare for Afghan women and children, built schools, provided security to Afghan children so they could receive an education without being murdered by the Taliban, and much, much more. Our service in Afghanistan was worthy, and the sacrifices made by those who served, those we lost, and those who continue to struggle has given the chance for peace to a people who have only experienced pain, subjugation and suffering. I am immensely proud to have served alongside the men and women of Mentoring Task Force 1. They represent the very best of our Army, the very best of the Defence Force and the very best of this nation. I'll now pass on to Major Stu Zahnleiter, who will read the names of the fallen and recite the ode. Thank you, and duty first.
The following soldiers served as members of Mentoring Task Force 1. As a result of their service, they lost their lives and are listed here on the bronze panels of the Memorial's Roll of Honour. We pause here today to honour them, to recognise their sacrifice and to uphold their memory. Sapper Jacob Morland, 7th of June 2010, aged 21. Sapper Darren Smith, 7th of June 2010, aged 26. Private Nathan Buse, 9th of July 2010, aged 23. Private Grant Kirby, 20th of August 2010, aged 35. Private Thomas Dale, 20th of August 2010, aged 21. Lance Corporal Jared McKinney, 24th of August 2010, aged 28. Sapper David Wood, 22nd of May 2013, aged 22. Today, we also acknowledge those Australians from outside MTF-1 who served during this period and who made the ultimate sacrifice. We recognise that 10 years have passed for their families too, and we pay tribute to these fellow servicemen.
Private Timothy Applin, 21st of June 2010, aged 38. Private Scott Palmer, 21st of June 2010, aged 27. Private Benjamin Chuck, 21st of June 2010, aged 27. Trooper Jason Brown, 13th of August 2010, aged 29. They were sons, brothers, husbands and fathers, and we will continue to honour and remember them. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. Every night at the last post ceremony at the Australian War Memorial, we open with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves have made. And we conclude, as I would like to conclude today, many a man lying out there in Pozieres or the low scrub of Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses, barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. So the members of MTF-1 know that we are very, very proud of each and every one of you, and we thank you.